Hello guys, it's me Urahara, and in this video we'll talk about Rukia's Bankai as well as Toshiro's Bankai in his final form, and why in my personal opinion Toshiro's Bankai in his adult form is stronger than Rukia's Bankai. So first of all, the points that are in common between Toshiro and Rukia's Zanpakuto are that they are both ice types. But when we come to the definition of each one of them, we find that Rukia's Zanpakuto is considered the most beautiful Zanpakuto in the Soul Society, while Hyurin is considered the strongest Ice Zanpakuto. And this is the important point of the whole issue. When we talk about the Ice Zanpakuto, Hyurin is the strongest, regardless of who has it. The same thing when we talk about Ryujin Jakka. It is also considered the strongest fire-type Zanpakuto. So, speaking about Hyurin, and since it's the strongest ice Zanpakuto, no ordinary Shinigami would have this Zanpakuto. For this, it must be someone who has extraordinary qualities. That's why the chosen one was Toshiro. From a young age, Toshiro had qualities that made him the chosen one to carry this unique Zanpakuto. His silver hair and green-blue eyes made him so distinguished from the rest of his peers, so they called him the embodiment of ice. And more than that, Toshiro since a young age has a magnificent Ryatsu, so that his Ryatsu was formed in the form of coldness. And this is one of the points that I don't know why so many people don't want to understand it. The abilities in Bleach are based on Ryatsu. Ryatsu in Bleach is the first determinant of personal strength and abilities, especially when it comes to Shinigamis. And for example, when Yamamoto released Ryujin Jakka for the first time, when Ukitake wanted to describe the flames, he described firstly the Ryatsu. And the same thing with Toshiro. He was unintentionally freeze his grandmother because his Ryatsu came out of his body. For all of these extraordinary talents that Toshiro has, he obtained the most powerful Ice Zanpakuto in the Soul Society, Hyurin. And Toshiro, even though he was at very young age, was able to reach Bankai even before he entered the Gucci 13. Can you imagine that? Of course, here where we have to clarify a lot of things about Toshiro's Bankai, because some, with a superficial reading of the Bankai that they saw, they say it's a weak Bankai, without looking at the context in which Toshiro was using his incomplete Bankai. So it is true that Toshiro was able to release the Bankai at a very young age, which many Shinigami couldn't do it. Ichigo needed the Tenshintai to release his Bankai, and Rukia needed to go to the Royal Palace in order to be able to release her Bankai and learn the power of her Zanpakuto. As for Toshiro, unlike everyone else, he relied on his own terrain without using a specific means or through nepotism in order to go to the Royal Palace. No, none of this happened. Throughout the story, Toshiro was also fighting with an imperfect Bankai that has a unique abilities. And on the other hand, when we talk about Rukia and her Zanpakuto, the strength of this Zanpakuto is basically exhausting for Rukia's body. In contrast to Toshiro, Sudeno Shirayuki's power is to lower the body temperature of its owner below the freezing point, and when she does that, she is liable to be harmed if she stays exposed to that temperature, and we saw this on the Shikai level. And although she froze Ace Note the first time in the Absolute Zero range, she was unable to affect him. But in the Bankai level, she becomes close to get destroyed by her Bankai, however it gives her more freezing power to make damage to the opponent, and that's why she was able to kill Ace Note. But the main problem of the Bankai is that it's of limited use, meaning if Rukia misses the target or somehow manages to get rid of Rukia's ice, at the Bankai level, Rukia will be in a real danger, because as soon as Rukia releases her Bankai, she personally wasn't able to bear that power of her Bankai, and hadn't been for Byakuya, the consequences would have been fatal. And of course in the fights, Byakuya will not be always next to her. Rather, as I said, if the enemy was able to avoid Rukia's Bankai, Rukia then will be in a real danger. Of course here some will come and tell me, but Rukia has the ability of the opposite zero. And so what? Any Shinigami's ability, whatever its type, is related to Ryatsu. And in the case of Rukia, that ability, you can only use it in 4 seconds. And yet it was unable to eliminate Ace Note. Because if we're gonna talk about the abilities and ignore Ryatsu, then Rukia should have killed Ace Note at the Shikai level because she froze Ace Note with the absolute zero. So why didn't Ace Note die? Why did he die in the Bankai? Simply because it's not primarily related to the power of the ability, it is related to the power of Ryatsu. And back to Toshiro, Daigorin Hyorimaru only with his imperfect Bankai gives him unique abilities. As we said, Toshiro has a huge Ryatsu, which itself forms coldness. And unlike Rukia, Toshiro does not need to put his body in a state of death in order to obtain freeze or strong eyes. Because one of Daigorin Hyorimaru's basic ability, which I consider to be one of the strongest abilities, is his ability to control the weather. And if you look at his ability, you will find it a dangerous one, especially if its owner has a mighty Ryatsu. It can make the weather from hot to cold. Of course, here our conversation was only about Toshiro's incomplete Bankai. Unlike Ichigo, Renji, and Rukia, who only discovered the true power of their Zanpakuto when they went to the Riot Palace, Toshiro spent months training until Daigorin Hyorimaru was completed. And contrary to what was believed that if the petal's gone, the Bankai's strength ends, it has been shown at the end of the manga that when all the petals are broken, then Daigorin Hyorimaru is complete and raises his true strength, which cannot be in any way compared to Rukia's Bankai, because the adult Bankai of Toshiro surpasses Rukia's Bankai in every way. And we can start with the opponents of each of Rukia and Toshiro. Rukia was fighting Ace Note, who is an ordinary Sternlighter, under the command of Haschwald. As for Toshiro, in his adult form, was in a direct combat with one of the most powerful and elite guard of Yuaba, the one who had the heart of Ryo, Girard. So the fight was not normal at all. Even with his incomplete Bankai, Toshiro was able to stop the fall of a large part of one of the cities of the Wanderreich on Serity that would have fallen due to Girard's attack. But in the adult form, Toshiro's freeze become fast and its range is very wide. With one hand, he was able to block Girard's attack as he sent that huge shield towards Toshiro. One move from Toshiro made that shield useless. And add to it, and this is the most important point that some people don't want to accept, Toshiro's eyes at that point isn't just pure eyes. Ice itself has the power to make all the forms of matter inactive. All functions of any substance become useless in front of Toshiro's eyes. Toshiro's eyes was able to nullify one of the most powerful swords in the story, the Sword of Hope. And Girard with this sword was able to defeat Zaraki without the eye patch and with Nozara's Shikai. So how can we compare to a Bankai that makes its owner move with difficulty and is at risk of death because of his ability, and he only has one explosive attack attached to a pillar behind him, with a Bankai that allows its owner to move around and freeze everything with ease, nullifying their abilities, and was able to make Girard a pieces of ice if it hadn't been for the immortality that bring him back. That's why Kui didn't come out of nowhere and described Hyorimaru as the strongest ice Zanpakuto. Add to that, the Battle of Shinigami is a battle of Ryatsu in the first place, so we cannot compare Toshiro, who from a young age possesses Ryatsu capable of freezing and possess the strongest ice Zanpakuto, with a character who had just learned Bankai. And so guys, that's my opinion. The evidences are clear. What about you? Tell me your opinions in the comments and see you guys in my next video.